When should I start to panic if my child is not meeting their developmental milestones? My name's Emily. I'm a pediatric occupational therapist, and I use developmental milestones as a guideline to help me determine if a child might need a little bit of extra support to do the things that they need to do. Developmental milestones are very helpful because they tell us what the average, typically developing child will be able to do at a certain age. However, because it is an average, we know that means there are children who will achieve those skills earlier than others and children who will achieve skills later than others and still fall within the range of average. It's not like a child wakes up on their first birthday and suddenly they can do all these skills that they couldn't do yesterday. So for starters, I never want a parent to panic about developmental milestones. Milestones are simply a tool to help us determine if we're seeing patterns in development that indicate that a child might benefit from a little bit of extra support. So here's an example. Around 9 to 10 months, babies start to develop a pincer grasp. So before that, they're using mostly a raking grasp to pick things up. Pincer grasp is a huge development because it means that they can pick up little pieces of food and bring them to their mouth. So let's say there's a baby who's not using their pincer grasp by 10 months, but they're showing interest in putting items into containers and pulling them out. They're starting to crawl, they're starting to isolate their pointer finger to poke you, and they can even bang items together. In that situation, the child may start to use their pincer grasp by their first birthday. So that situation is a lot different from a child who's showing us a pattern. If we have a child who's 1 year old and they're not able to bang things together, they're not interested in putting things into or out of containers, they're not able to isolate their pointer finger to poke you, and they're not using their pincer grasp, then our ears turn up. If you think you're starting to see a pattern that your child needs a little bit of extra support, or your child has skills that they have not achieved that are impacting their life in a big way, I still don't want you to panic. I want you to talk to your pediatrician, and I also want you to keep in mind that you can self-refer to early intervention if you and your pediatrician disagree about whether or not your child needs more support. Sometimes as parents, when we start to see things that concern us, we can have the temptation to say, oh, well, let's just wait and see what happens. But sometimes that can get us into a bad situation if we're letting skill deficits go. So the example that we had earlier, if a child is not using their pincer grasp by their first birthday, well, then by 18 months, they're not turning the pages of a book, they're not playing with blocks, and down the road, it can impact their self-feeding and self-dressing skills. So in short, I never want a parent to panic, but I do want you to keep in mind that developmental milestones do build on one another. So if you think that you're seeing a pattern that indicates that your child needs a little bit of extra help, I want you to go ahead and get the ball rolling.